With my last video, a lot of people had to disagree with many points I made about Jujutsu Infinite. In today's video, I will be clearly explaining things and covering some of those points again, as well as covering many of the arguments I've heard from people who disagreed with me. So make sure to subscribe and let's get straight into it. Alright, so first of all, I had watched Revolver AGZ, who had actually did a reaction stream to my last video, and some of the people in his chat were a bit dumb, making dumb points, and he also said something I completely disagree with. When I talked about my first point, which the first point I made in that video was about the map being too large and in my opinion very poor in quality and aesthetics. Revolver AGZ in his chat said that was nitpicking. It really isn't. Many people responded with, "Who cares about the map? Who cares about the map? Really? You guys think that's a valid take? You guys think I'm nitpicking for saying the game's map is bad? Think of your favorite video games of all time and think about what they'd be like without a map. Imagine if Elden Ring were a base plate with just boss fights in it. Now, I'm not comparing Jujutsu Infinite to Elden Ring, but would you guys enjoy the game at all if there was no map? The game was just a base plate and it had monster and item spawns. Could you enjoy that? Yeah, I don't think it would be very fun. And with how little the map is actually developed and with how there is basically nothing in it, it's not so far from being a base plate. The teleportation and airdropping exists because the devs know the map isn't good. It's not fun to navigate and play in, so they allow you to skip most of it and go straight to key locations, because they themselves know their map isn't worth exploring, because there isn't anything else worth being in the map. And honestly, the old map was better, and they're both just as massive and boring, but the old map at least had some decent and cool points of interest. Like, regardless, the map does matter, so saying who cares about the map is a stupid point you're using to act like the bad map doesn't matter when it very much does. I'm not nitpicking. And also, someone said, complaining about a big map when you play Deep Woken is insane. This point is just stupid. Deep Woken's map isn't empty, and it's not even as big as Jujutsu Infinite's map. I could go through both Luminants faster than I could traverse Jujutsu Infinite's map. It's not a good point to make. The next point of contention I saw was the fact that I said the game hasn't changed much since testing. Specifically, someone left a comment saying a few things, so I'll just read off the points. The devs worked for the last year on techniques, reworking and adding new bosses, adding a storyline, and reworking the missions like 3 times. Okay, so in a year's worth of times, the devs finished the cursed techniques, which most of which were already done by the halfway point of testing. They added a tutorial, which is genuinely the highest effort part of this game. If the entire game were as good as the tutorial, oh my god, this would be a perfect game. They added an underbaked storyline, which feels like it was written in days, honestly. The story for this game is really weak and poorly written. I know a lot of you don't really like Arcane Odyssey for its gameplay, but I will say this. Arcane Odyssey has one of the best stories I've ever seen in a Roblox game. It is very well done, and it's quite fun to read through. Anyway, within all this time, they also slightly reworked bosses, which is whatever. The Mahito boss fight is actually not as bad as I said it was, but he's still not a well-designed boss fight even now. And then they added items and accessories, which is another point that the comment made, but that not only takes minimal time, but dev teams don't work like that. Everything I've mentioned here was probably done by a different person since they're all different jobs. A scripter isn't working on accessories and on boss reworking. I guess a scripter has to give it stats, but adding stats to an item is just like copy and pasting and then changing some numbers around, so it's really easy. So realistically, how was this all a year of development? People are defending all of this by telling me what the devs got done in the last year, but when all of these are different jobs, most likely done by different people, how is this a year's worth of development? And even if it wasn't all done by a different dev, none of this still seems like a year's worth of time in development. This game has not changed significantly within the last 6 months, and I've seen some testers agree with me and some testers also disagree with me. So it seems like a mixed opinion, and I played the game a lot during testing. And apparently the whole quest system being reworked 3 times this year, so it went from a mission board to an NPC to a bunch of more scattered NPCs. Wow, what a hard triple rework. Did you know that in order to rework the quest system by changing where the quests go, all you really gotta do is copy and paste some lines of code and then just put them on different NPCs or unions or aspect? It's not that hard. The third point I've seen, which is another really dumb one, was in regards to what I said about domain expansions being too strong and deciding the fight entirely. Many people said, but in Jujutsu Kaisen it's like that, they're supposed to decide fights. This is a video game. If I'm at 20,000 health and the guy I'm fighting is one shot at like 500 health, and he domains and wins the fight, that is lame. Domains should be strong, but right now they're so strong that regardless of the advantages the fight currently has, no matter what, the domain caster or clash winner will always win, which means the entire fight before the domain clash is boring, redundant, and useless, and that makes the PvP with domains boring. And for those of you who also make the argument most people don't have domains, Unlucky, because basically every tester, because they didn't wipe our inventories, so all of us have the items that we got in testing, which includes domain shards. If you see someone with the High-End Era Sorcerer tester tag, they have domain. And, you know, even without domains, the combat in PvP without domains is basically just decided by who can land their rush or bait harder. Because the way it works right now is if you land your rush, you get the first combo. After that, you eat a combo, press E to do a rush again, and do a combo. So the game's PvP without domain is really just whoever lands the first combo will also land the last combo and win the fight 90% of the time. So the game turns into either two people trying to rush in and spam, or two people playing passive and really, really boringly while they wait for someone to either miss a rush or block a rush or waste their tendril, at which point the opposite person uses their rush or tendril to then initiate a combo and win the fight off of that first combo. You know, unless the other person decides to do the even more boring thing and run away from the fight, so that way they can reverse curse technique and heal, or if they have blood manipulation, which a lot of people run it for the passives, or the utility abilities, then it just becomes a really boring system of combat, where either the first person to land a hit wins, or the person who can stall, bait, and, I don't know, run better wins, which means that it's not good. And you could say, oh, well, that's what the Veils are for, but the Veils don't really stop blood manipulation users and reverse curse technique and all that. Which, by the way, about the PvP, the meta is terrible. It is so bad right now. Because right now you kind of need at least 3 curse techniques, because what most people do is they'll run 2 good techniques, and then they'll run 2 other techniques for utility, like blood manipulation, which has some really good utility moves, and I forget what the other really good utility innate technique is, but because they've nerfed so many, the meta is literally just like any 2 special grades, or maybe like ratio, which is actually really good, or some certain things like disaster flames, and then blood manipulation on the side, and then whatever the other utility one is. And people just run that, so that way they can stall, sustain, and do as much damage as possible. And it's so boring because the devs decided to make like a third or more of the curse techniques basically useless. Super lame. And the final point, which I got in the comments that I'm addressing here, is the fact that someone said that the game devs purposely didn't release PvP modes so they could update the game layer to keep the hype. How is this a good thing? Why are you defending this? You are defending the devs purposely releasing less content to build hype. Why would you even defend this as a player? You are defending the game having less content that you can play so that way that the game has hype. Are you a dev leaving comments in disguise trying to pretend to be a player? Like what is the point of this comment? And for those of you who also commented saying, if you hate the game, don't talk about it, don't make videos about it. I can talk about a game's negatives and criticize it without hating it. Criticism helps games improve, and it seems like a lot of the little kids commenting on my video saying, don't comment on the game, lil bro, meanwhile you're fucking 12 years old. It's just stupid. Because why are you saying, don't talk about the game bad? I'm trying to help the game improve. You want a better game? Then maybe watch my video, listen to the video. Maybe the devs can listen to the video, improve their game. But because you guys don't understand what criticism is and thinks that any sort of negative aspects equals completely trashing your game, even though I'm literally not just calling the game bad without reason. I'm telling you guys what's bad about the game so it could be improved. And you're like, oh, all you do is talk bad about the game. Shut up. That's the point. Anyway, some new points I want to bring up now that I've covered most of what I saw from my last video. First up being the Heavenly Restriction. This shouldn't be paid for. It should be a rare obtainable, or even gotten through the wheel spins or something. But making people pay for what should just be a part of the game is really stupid. And it was also nerfed, so it's not as broken as I said it was. Regardless, this shouldn't cost money, especially not as much as it is, because it costs almost as much as the original tester spots did at about $20. And sorry, I forgot to mention this, so it kind of ruins the structure a little bit, but somebody left a comment saying, why did you talk bad about this game but not Ghoul Re? I hope you enjoyed that paycheck the devs gave you. First of all, I'm fucking insulted that you would think I would take a paycheck from a developer to talk good about their game. Second of all, I didn't even talk good about Ghoul Re, okay? I gave more negative points in that video than good points, so I don't know why you would leave that comment. It's just a really stupid point to make. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The drop rates, also just absolutely horrendous. And so is the pity rates for like rare drops that you get from farming bosses. Like, I've seen people who fought a boss like 100 times to get a singular drop, which is so dumb. Buff the pity and buff the regular rates, because, I mean, just farming the same boss over and over again for 6 hours just isn't fun for anyone. My favorite part of the game by far, though, is fighting the 8 snowmen. And now, we definitely can't talk like this game doesn't have the ability to improve. It definitely always had, and I don't know where the funding is going, because if you guys remember when the game was like going into testing, when the game sold testing $30 a person, they got so many sales. Before what is probably Discord commission and tax, the game generated grossly over $1 million. $1 million generated just for selling tester. And somehow the game just like, where did all the budget go? I see that the budget went into visual effects, and that seems like it. It seems like the devs pocketed pretty much all of the game's funding for themselves, and it's so lame. And you know, the game was also said to be an open world part. Like, it's supposed to be an open world game. It was always said, this is an open world Jujutsu Kaisen game. Where is the open world? Like, you're saying it's supposed to be open world Jujutsu Kaisen, right? But one, the map doesn't at all resemble anything from Jujutsu Kaisen or Japan, so lame open world. And two, the open world is empty. What do you mean open world? Open world doesn't mean that you can wander around and like do stuff. It means that there's actually a world to explore, and there's nothing worth exploring here. I know this goes back to the point of the map, but it's so bad that they would market it as open world Jujutsu Kaisen game. Not really open world, and only barely Jujutsu Kaisen. It's so bad. And then the PvE is kind of just like, it's bad too. Like, I know I said that it was just bandit beatery, like you just kind of spam moves before. Now the bosses are alright, but the enemies aren't just like bandit beatery, because there's also like the sorcerer enemies and the curse users. But the curse users and sorcerers are so insanely bad, because you kind of just get you know, hit once and then you have to wait like 5 seconds to end their combo string. Oh, but you can block it. Yeah, you can block it. So all you gotta do is wait for them to do anything and then press E, and that's the entire fight decided. If you've been watching the background footage here, which is some of what I recorded when I was progressing, the entire part, everything after like level 40 just got like corrupted. Like encoding just failed for some reason. So everything past me being level 40 just doesn't exist anymore in my files because it's all broken. But everything before and after it really is bad. And I mean, you can probably tell how much fun I am having by watching the background footage, and it's just not the greatest thing. You know, I like my PvE to have a challenge, but another big problem is, I know I said that the bosses had clear-cut patterns, which were good, but the bosses also just have too strict patterns. If you look at Souls games or any other game where the bosses are meant to have patterns be hard, generally bosses will have patterns, but they can also mix up those patterns. A good example of this would be really anything from any Soulsborne game, how enemies will have a certain combo, but then they'll throw out a combo that ends slightly differently that you have to counter differently. That is a good way to mix up combos, but this game doesn't have any sort of combo mix-ups in the bosses or enemies, so the PvE really has zero challenge to it once you learn a boss's patterns, because they don't have any sort of mix-ups, so there's no real reactions. It's pretty lame. And also, one more thing that's really dumb, which I talked about a little but not too much in detail, is just the entire Jujutsu High hub area. It makes the game feel like a simulator with the big glowing ring areas and stuff. They might as well make a big gold one with the word sell on it, and it lets me upgrade a backpack to carry the curses I kill. You might as well with this stupid looking hub area. It should just get, like, they gotta get rid of it. And okay, last point, but about the music, yes, you can mute it, but why does this game have 2 songs? There is the Lo-Fi Jujutsu Kaisen remix, which, by the way, is one of the worst pieces of music that has ever been composed ever. It's not even on beat with the original song. And then there's the Mahito Domain remix. I understand composing music for a universe you didn't create, as it's, you know, it's Jujutsu Kaisen, is hard, but you guys, 1, couldn't even take good music and put it in the game, and 2, how did you guys get so lazy with it? You got so lazy with the game's atmospheric stuff like music that you chose 2 songs and they both suck terribly. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If I missed anything, just, I don't know, leave in the comments. Let's see what you guys like and dislike about the game. Hopefully the devs see this and can improve on their game. Hopefully the little kids see this and realize why they're dumb little kids. Make sure to subscribe. Shoutouts to Brick, Goobka, and Drizzy Drake Fan. I love you all, and goodbye.